Welcome, podcasters. You are listening to another episode of Tell Me Why, a resource for athletes, coaches, and parents in sport. Co-hosted by Dr. Ginny Cristerna and U.S. Speed Skating Hall of Fame inductee Patrick Wentland. This podcast is developed as a resource for athletes, parents, coaches, and referees looking to improve player development and performance. Conversations and opinions expressed on the show are not intended as medical or clinical advice. Welcome back, podcasters, to another episode of Tell Me Why. Today we are continuing on discussing the athlete's mental edge and how to improve performance. Along with me again as my co-host, Dr. Ginny Cristerna. Say hi, Jenny.
Howdy doody.
We had such great interest from last week's, a lot of good questions and comments from you guys, and wanted to keep discussing this a little bit on how to take you another level from where you're at. Jenny and I have discussed one of our top reasons for having this podcast. We believe there's a lot of little tricks and things that people aren't aware of. They just want to get better, and you got to have that sense of direction. You got to know where you're going in order to get there. Last week, we discussed a little bit more about improving your 100% level and not going into every practice 50%. Well, Ginny, I heard this great quote last week, and I'm going to butcher it. It was by John Maxwell, and I wanted to go through, actually, I think it was from John Wooden, and it was through John Maxwell. John Wooden's one of the I think UCLA basketball coach, one of the most winningest coaches, and he used to talk to his athletes about giving 100% in practice. And I really liked how he explained it. I'm going to have to go back and dig it up because I'll butcher it a little bit. But he was telling athletes how they need to devote that 100% every day. And the athletes would tell him, well, I only got like 50% of me today. And the way he explained it, that I got it, was if you give 50% today, and you're thinking that you're going to make it up tomorrow by giving 100, 110, 120, 150% tomorrow, that's not possible. So basically, you're going into your practice today 50%, where your competition's going in 75, 100%. Tomorrow, you may be at 100%, but you've already lost 50%. How are you, as an elite athlete, going to gain back that additional 50% that you lost, and say tomorrow's only 75, or whatever days that you're not giving 100% out there, you're actually losing and falling behind from where you should be. So that one was really struck with me. And I'd love to get your take on it, Jenny, but
I'm writing
going into every practice 100%, knowing that you can't get that time back. If you're going in tired, you're going in lazy, or not energetic, whatever it is, you're missing out on performance improvement where your competition's using it. I just
Absolutely.
really like that one.
I like it too. And this is what I tell people. Are you going in 50% because that's all you got? Or is that 50% your 100% for that day? Is that your 100% for that day? Because we're going to reframe things, right? We have to reframe things where you can take 100% ownership and you're not lying to yourself and you're not beating yourself up and making impossible goals. No one's going to be 100% every day, but we can reframe it where each of us can take responsibility, which is, hey, this is my 100% today. It might be 50% of what you saw yesterday, but this is 100% of what I've gotten to give, what I've got to give today. And what I tell people is, to that coach's point, it's like when you have an A in a class and say you get a C, right? Your GPA has gone from a 4.0 and you got the C, which is a 2.0. Your GPA is now a 3.0. It is now impossible to get back up to a 4.0. It just is. If you start, say you have AP classes and you're on a 5.0 or 6.0 scale, then you got some wiggle room. But sometimes it's hard to get back to that place. And I think what he might be alluding to is, don't make that the norm. Don't make it normal for you to just go, this is what I feel like doing today, or I can't push myself. And don't get into that mindset. That mindset is what will keep you from getting to 100%. Because each day that you're at a deficit, now you've added to that deficit. Now it's harder for you to get back to where you were. So, say you had a 4.0, you got a C, that's a 3.0, but say you got another C, now it's a 2.5. And say you get another C, 2.3, another C, 2.1. So now your average is C's and you have 1A. If you gave 100% one day, but the rest of the week you gave like 50, what was the point of you giving 100%? Right? Find what your baseline is, find your 100% and give that consistently. Let that be your 100% for the day. But you got to be honest about what that looks like. You can't be like, oh, this is 100%. And all you're doing is picking and eating your boogers. Like, that's not a thing. That doesn't count, which I've seen
Yeah.
an athlete eat his boogers. It was pretty gross.
Oh,
Just sitting there.
how quickly we digress.
It's fresh in my mind.
No, I like your analogy, and it's basically it's that percentage point. And as soon as your percentages start going down, getting them back up or catching back up to 100% is nearly impossible.
Yeah.
And I think that's just a great point to get across to our listeners. I really like how you mentioned 100% for that day. And I think that's where a lot of people get confused in this. Like, well, I don't have 100% today. I'm tired from the last 3 days workouts. But you're right. Whatever your 100% for that day is your 100%. Like, yeah, your times or your performance may not meet your max or your best performances of normal because you're overtired and rested from training, but you're still giving 100% for that day. So that still counts as 100%. If you say, I'm tired today, so I'm going to take it a little easier and start my rest day. All right. Well, then you're dropping down to 75, 50%, and you can't get that back, but you can give your 100% even when it's not your max performance because you're already tired or rested. And I think that's where people they miss that point and they get a little confused on it. So I like how you put that together.
Well, thank you, Patrick. Seal of approval.
Hey, it's hard to get. One interesting one on it just happened to come to mind. And I think I've told you, I had the opportunity to work with an Olympic athlete, Apollo Ono, who is currently the number one I think he's got the most medals out of all American Winter Olympic male athletes, and he still holds that title.
Wow.
One of the things that I really enjoyed that he lived by, and it was one of his favorite quotes he used all the time, was no regrets. And this goes right back to the 100% thing. And he lived that through every practice. And we talked about this last week a lot, where after your performance practice or competition, you get to your goals or you don't, you have to look back and you go, okay, I didn't reach my goal. What could I have done better? What could what did I miss out on? What could I have changed? And same with when you meet your goals and your accomplishments, you can still look back and say, I can do this better. I can do this better. But he had this thing where every practice he would understand, I don't want to leave this practice with any regret. Same with the competition. He would go into those practices and understanding, okay, I need to be able to give my 100% here because I don't want to go into my next competition and be understanding if I fail or come in second or whatever it would be, don't meet my goals, I have a regret because I took a day off, because I decided to go out to Dairy Queen, because I did whatever. I love the analogy. I love the quote that he lived by. And he really did that on and off the field. It wasn't just on the ice practice. It was in the cafeteria. It was getting his rest. It was his mental training. It was his nutritional training. So I think that's another part that athletes need to understand. You can't just be thinking about this on the field. It is a way of life. If you have that goal of being the best of the best, there is something to be said about being able to turn that into a life practice and cover that in every aspect of your life.
So I like that. One, that was a dig at DQ. I just had a peanut butter parfait last night. So
It's
I,
hard to beat. I like the
I
blizzards. The blizzards are my
we
downfall.
digress again, everybody. We understand this, and we're okay with it. We like ourselves, and so yeah. But anyway, so we love Dairy Queen. That's all I want to say. They're not a sponsor, but we just like them. They don't ever
We
have
do.
to be. But here's what I like about what you said. And I'm the big person around reframing. And the first thing that I wrote down with my little note here is you compete the way you train. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. The way you train is how you're going to show up. You're never going to show up 500% better than how you've trained consistently. That's why everyone needs to know what their 100% is. Because you're going to give 100%, whatever that looks like. And it's always going to look, by the way, spectacular. Because people are going to feel the energy of you giving your all, even if you don't win. That is the point. It's not about winning. It's did I leave everything out there on the field, on the ice, on the mat, on the whatever? Did I give everything I had? And when you give everything you have in practice, you make it look easy when you actually compete. That's the whole thing. And you make brilliant plays. You make it just look beautiful because that's how consistent you've been in practice. Now, there's another thing, and I know this has come up. I'm doing some work for a sports organization for their refs, and one of the things that I recognize when I talked with these referees, and then I started talking with some athletes, and you and I've worked together. And one of the themes that I've noticed that you touched on with the Apollo owner with no regrets is he would have this discipline. And I know we've talked about discipline and self-control and all this other stuff in the beginning of our podcast in episode 1, starting with episode 1. But here's the theme that I pulled out from all of this, and I am gonna put $100 on the table, say it applies to every sport, which is when you said it's a way of life, what I'm gonna say is that's right, and I'm gonna have us pin that, and I'm gonna reframe it because I think it gets lost. I think how
Okay.
some people hear about it is like, "I don't want the sport to be my whole life. I got friends. I got a wife. I got a
Gotcha.
kid,"
No,
or something.
I
That's
see
how
where
I
you're going with this, and I
think.
like it.
There we go. And this is why you're my friend. You like my thoughts. Let every but anywho's, so what I wanted to do was reframe that in that this all ties together. This isn't a way of life like gym. It's a way of life, but we don't mean it in the same way. Sports, it's a way of life, but it doesn't mean what you think it doesn't mean that that's all you do. When we say it's a way of life, I want you to reframe that in your head to look at these are the basic building blocks, the foundation of any part of your life, of every part of your life, which is being grounded, being present, doing everything you could do in that moment. 5 minutes is 5 minutes. What do you do in that 5 minutes? It's not quantity and it's not just quality. It's a combination of both. Yes, you want quality, but where is that tipping point where you compromise quality for quantity and you stay in that space? You discover what that is. So whether you're making a meal, whether you're training, whether you're hanging out with your friends, each moment is eternity. Every moment that you're present in is eternity. Be present in that moment and live it up. Soak it up like a dry sponge. What would you love to do in this moment? What are you enjoying in this moment? What is making your heart sing? What is it that you're struggling with in that moment? And be really clear with it. Right? Each moment is eternity. So when we say something is a way of life, it is a building block of life. It is a way that we're actualizing all of the rules of life that you would apply to any portion of your life. Being present, living in integrity, enjoying each moment, even the insufferable ones, and learning from them. And what did you learn? And how does that apply to anything else? Because I promise you it does. I
Yep.
promise you self control and discipline will apply to everything in your life, whether it's you're in a marriage and you're thinking about having an affair or going out or whatever. How much do I love this person? How much do I love the life that I have? How much do I love myself? And if you're an
Yep. No,
athlete,
I
the same thing applies. The Dairy Queen. I love my Dairy Queen, and I can still have my Dairy Queen. I just can't have it today. Not right now. And I promise you, Dairy Queen is amazing, but it tastes so much better after you've done all your work. Now you can fully enjoy that Dairy Queen. So being
go ahead and
able to
drop
say,
that mic, Ginny.
I'm just saying, maybe not now. That's all that means. It's just not now. Maybe later. That's all.
Yeah. No, I think you nailed it. Very well explained, and I think that part. And I tried to explain this to athletes I work with multiple times. I didn't have this that much as a kid, but those traits that you do develop, and I developed over my years in competition, definitely spreads out into the rest of your life. Your
Yep.
determination, your ability to fight through things, your willpower, it spreads into everything else you do. And you can't turn that on and turn it off when you go on the field or
That's
off the
right.
field. When you become that, I want to call it perfectionist, striving for the best and being able to push yourself, you do that on the field and you do that off the field. It's not mentally, physically possible to become that go hard, give everything 100%, perfectionist, hardworking athlete, and then go home and be a lazy ass to sit on the couch and don't do anything. It doesn't work that way.
That part right
It
there.
does carry, yeah, it does carry over to the rest of your life. And you develop those skills maybe on the field, but they do have more meaning through everything else you do. It just, it's very important.
Yeah, you know what? And I want to say something to the parents and the coaches and the athletes and the refs. And this is something that I I, I hear people say in different ways, but there's always something that's missing. And so hopefully I'll capture a piece of that something that's missing. Sports, the reason that I love it so much is because it develops your character. It develops the qualities that define an individual's personality, which in turn is their character. It's their character, right? The quality of your character. And this is why I tell parents 1% of any child doing any sport will probably go pro. Maybe less than 1%. I'm being generous. 1% or so. No?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. And then when they go pro, it's not forever. So they better have their left and right brain learning how to work together and be able to take care of themselves past, their athletic career. All right. Even if it's managing their money that they made while they were doing sports. Okay. Now, when we're talking about putting our kids in sports, and coaches, this is for you. Parents, this is for you because your kid doesn't know any better just yet. Find a club, find a team where the character of the coach, you don't mind them pouring or sharing that with your kid. I'm gonna tell you
Very
why,
important.
and I just refed a tournament. Now it was a local tournament here, and my kid, he's a ref. This is his first certification. This is maybe his third game or something, and he was AR for the first time, and he was also playing. So I recall noticing that a lot of, not all, but a lot of the really top level teams, excuse my language, but their coaches were a-holes. And here's the irony. I ref, right? I ref a team where I asked the coach, I said, "Hey, coach, do you have the game ball?" Because they were the home team. Home team has to supply a ball.
Yeah.
Coach goes, "Does it look like I carry a ball?" What is a problem? And I just thought,
Wow.
dude, what's your problem? Like, you're the home team. You have to just give us a game ball so we can play this game.
Yeah.
Hey guys, does it look like now these are 13-year-old boys.
Oh my gosh.
And so they're like, oh, Pooh, yeah, where's your and one kid walked over, was like, you can use my ball.
Wow.
And I looked at him and I just thought, I hope you don't stay on this team
Yeah.
because you become that coach. So mind you, then I hear the coach going, "Hey, when you score, don't chest bump. That's that class." And I just thought, set the pot to the kettle. Like, of course they're going to be a-holes. Look at you. How can you turn around? And
Yeah.
so, but I noticed that the teams that were winning, their coaches were like that, and you could see those kids just suck it in. But then I look across the field, and the parents were like that. And then
Mhm.
I was just like, "Oh, it's not that it dawned on me, it just reminded me, you all find each other. If winning is the most important thing in life, God help your kid. You will always find a league, a tournament, a coach, or whatever that will be winning in that league or that tournament. But wait till that kid in 10 years. Kid won't be worth 2
Yeah.
dead flies. Will struggle with all kind of relationships. Will struggle with him or herself. And I share this because that way of life, coaches, you matter. Parents, you matter. Is it that important that you win, that you can be a jerk, and that the kids end up being like that, and parents, you're like, finally, I get to be important. It's just like, dude, therapy. Like, that's a therapy issue. That is you living through your kid and planting seeds of some of the most horrible qualities that will lead to a character that you're not going to like very much. You're not going to like them
Right.
very much. And neither will a lot of other people. Not that it matters who likes us or not, but we're building the content of someone's character when they're kids. Sometimes when you win,
Yeah.
you lose. And sometimes when you lose, you win. Sports is about developing integrity, it's about developing character. And if your kids walk away from sports being a jerk, you've lost, no matter how many games you've
Man, Jenny, I don't know what you had for breakfast today, but you are on fire. I mean, that's just so poignant and nail it. I mean, that's why we do sports. You're right. There's so few of us, even though we're all striving for the top. There's so few that get there. And I mean, I made it pretty far, but I could have gone farther. And you could always go further. But parents, athletes, coaches, referees, listen up there. That Jenny nailed it. Uh, you you have to look at this, and maybe you don't have to look at it. You have to understand that it is a building block of your character. You are so 100% right. I was a very different person before I started sports.
really.
I came out a very different person. I was shy. I would literally hide behind the couch if anyone came to the door. I mean, I was an incredibly shy kid. I couldn't talk to anybody anywhere. I would hide behind my parents walking down the street. I mean, I scared myself how shy I was. I knew that I wasn't going to go anywhere in life the way I was. It was that bad.
Mm.
I mean, I could tell. I knew it was that bad, but I didn't know what to do about it. I was a kid.
Mhm.
Sports forced me to into a comfort zone around other people, being able to push myself and be with other people and understanding the similar, having similar similarities in just a lot of different ways. And you also hit the nail on the head where the coaches I had were people. No matter where you are, no matter what coach you have as a kid, kids always look up to the coach. They learn. Like the coach is a teacher.
Yep.
That person I learned from my coaches. I learned what they were doing. I respected them, and I wanted to do things that they were teaching me. I wanted to be like them. Wow, it's so important. You have to have that respect for your coach. You have to have a similar mindset. And I tell you, I am 100% all for winning. And when I'm coaching, like any other coach, that's a name of the game, but it will not come ahead of ethics. It will not come ahead of cheating. It will not come ahead of doing things that I wouldn't want my kids to be doing. You win by making yourself better. You win by becoming a better athlete, becoming a better player, stronger, faster, quicker. I'm not a guy for coaching who will find any way possible to win. And I mean, I'll push my athletes to limit. I will follow every rule in the rule book and I will stretch those rules when need be. But I have a set of morals that I have lived by as a coach and as an athlete. And I expect that out of other coaches and athletes that work with me. So that is quite the great topic today that you nailed there, Jenny. It was well put. And again, we've talked about parents having meetings with coaches in the beginning of the year, find out who they are, find out what their plans are, find out how they act, how they handle kids, how they plan to coach the season. And you'll know if you're on the right team or not. You'll know if you want your kids with that person.
You know what? There's a couple things to your point. One, I want everybody to watch Karate Kid. I mean, the original one, not the remake with, Will Smith kid. I want you to watch the original Karate Kid because that coach, I promise you, parents, that that coach lurks behind a lot of coaches. You probably won't see that coach, but that shadow, you'd be surprised at how many coaches have that. Okay, maybe
Yep.
not to the degree he had it, like break the leg, but it's there. It's there. And your job is to hold coaches accountable. You said something and it made me tear up a little bit because I thought about a kid of a friend of mine who was on the team, same team that my son was on before we left that team. And there was, I think several podcasts ago, we talked about the coach who might be a retired professional athlete. That doesn't mean that they're going to be a good coach.
Very
And
true.
part of the reason that we left is because he was so focused on winning. And the parents who loved him, they didn't see anything. They just thought he was great because he's this famous athlete, retired athlete, Mexican soccer player. I have seen him personally damn near destroy the self esteem of nearly half a dozen players.
Wow.
Kids who are 12, 11, 13. And when I say destroy, I'm not hyperbolizing. I mean, to the point where kids gave up on themselves.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
it infuriated me because it's not my kid. I can't tell the parent what to do. But when he tried to do that to my kid, we left because you're not doing
Yeah.
that to my kid. I don't care. I don't give a shit who you are. And my kid is
Yeah.
on a different
See
team and
that.
he's doing well. But parents, you can't let a coach destroy your kid. And it goes back to that quality because if they can't control them, that's what they will do.
Yeah.
If they can't
Yeah.
control you, that is what they will do. They'll
And
isolate
and
you, they'll
that
leave you out.
yeah, that coaching mentality works in the professional level. And these guys they're already tough. They've already know what they've had to do to get there. You can't do that to 12, 13, 15, 16, 18-year old. Professional level, like you said, this guy was a professional player. That's where he learned and that's what he remembers. Definitely not the way you're coaching younger kids or teenagers. They're not ready for that. That's a whole different game. And if you're getting paid to play professional and paid to win, you better damn well get your butt out there and give me every last ounce you got. But
These are kids.
like you said, these kids are developing. That's a different story.
And
Wow,
excuse my
that's
F-bomb there.
that's rough.
Tell your
I
daughter
didn't
to
hear
leave
anything.
that. Okay.
All right.
But no, but I do wanna
I
bring
want,
that back to the way of life because
yeah,
this will become a way of life for them. So be careful
yes,
who you let into your kid's head and who you let into your head because it's easy for them to get in, it's very hard for them to get out.
right. Taking it back a little bit, we talked a little bit, and this has taken us a little bit off of making improving performance, but I believe it also it's another category in there, and I was thinking about it when I was talking about working with Apollo Uno, who I mentioned, is one of our top athletes ever, winter athletes in the country for men. There was one other um, character trait that he worked with that I think I rarely see, and I think it was also something that made him steps above everybody else. And I loved it. And I really, I express this to a lot of athletes I work with. He never blamed anybody else for any results. And this is short track speed skating. For those that have seen it on TV, you can be wiped out. Someone makes a bad pass on you. You're cleaned out of the race. No Olympic medal for you. Whatever it is, there's a million different things that can go wrong in just about any sport. The referees make a bad call. We've all seen that. He never, and I want to say never, any time he did not reach his goals in the whole many years I worked with him, there was never a time like, oh, that guy got in my way. It's all his fault. That ref did this, or that guy took me out, or whatever. It was always like I could have put myself in a different position. I could have tried a different pass. I could have trained harder. I could have done this a little differently. I could have done this a little differently. And I think this is one thing that I think when I was watching Michael Jordan's, uh,
The
what was it?
last
The
the
Last
last
Dance.
dance.
Yep. I don't ever recall anywhere in there where he actually blamed a referee, where he blamed another opponent. He looked at every failure to reach a certain goal as I have to do something different. I can change. I can either do this better. I can do this better. So many athletes all across the board, all different levels, from beginners to professionals, have an excuse. And they have a saying about excuses, but it's a little vulgar, so I won't go into it. Excuses get you nowhere. Excuses put the blame on somebody else, and it doesn't allow you to look freshly back at whatever mistake was made or whatever you could do differently in order to improve. You have to look at, yeah, this bad thing happened to me that I wasn't expecting. How can I get around it and fix it so it doesn't happen again?
So I'm gonna reframe that because I love it, but I'm gonna reframe it
Okay.
from a psychological perspective. Whenever
Of
you
course you
blame
are.
somebody, that's my job. I can't even help myself. It's like a habit, it's a habit.
Yes.
Whenever you blame someone, you have given away your power. Whenever you make an excuse for something that happened to you, even if it's not your fault, you've made yourself a victim. In both of those, you leave you walk away from those situations with less of who you are. You start to feel more and more empty. They did this to me. They did that to me. So even with those horrible coaches where, they're like, "Hey, you're nothing. We're going to ignore you. We're not going to play you." It's just like, you know what? They may have done that. That's the difference between being resilient and being a victim and being powerless. When you're resilient, like, yes, this thing happened to me. They did this thing to me. This is what I can do about it. If they won't play me, I will sit on the side and I'm going to take notes or whatever. I'm going to find somebody else who can play me or will play me. Or if you
Yep.
won't pass me the ball, when I'm going to steal the ball from the other player then, and I am going to make my play. It's
Right.
not so much that they won't do this to me and that's where it stops. It's like, oh, they won't do this. So this is what I'm going to have to do for myself, right? There is a comma, sometimes even a semicolon, sometimes a period, but there has to be another part of that sentence or another sentence that follows. Because as soon as you blame someone, you have given away your power. As soon as you blame the ref for a bad call. Now your brain has stopped and it can't even figure out that I might be able to do this instead. Now I have to do this. How am I going to do that? It can't even go into problem solving. It has accepted that as fate.
Yep.
This is why you don't blame. And this is why I want people to do sports whenever they can, because you cannot blame somebody and expect to win. So, what the ref is a crappy ref. That means you're going to have to really score a goal. That means you're going to have to put that ball so far of the net, maybe at 55, from 55 yards
Yep.
back. Or maybe you're going to have to do that three-pointer, from halfway across the court, whatever. If they keep calling
You have to be
fouls on it.
better.
Now I have to do it where it's so clear. How am I going to do that? Now I have a challenge. Now I have an opportunity to rise to an occasion. That is where your power is. That is how you become great. And that is a quality of your character that will follow you for the rest of your life, whether you're at corporate, whether you go into business for yourself, whether you're a parent, whether you're a neighbor, you will always figure it out. That is the point of sports. Learning how to figure things out. So what they won't do, dot, dot, dot. So what they did this to you. What are you going to do about it? That's the point.
Yep. Yeah. No, and it goes right back to what the character building trait we are talking about. I like to pick out things that I see out of top athletes. And
Mhm.
that is one thing right there that the best of the best, it is rare or non existent where you will see them point out blame for a failure or not reaching a goal. This is something you have to work towards. It's not like everybody, your first reaction is to blame the ref, blame the other athlete, blame your equipment, whatever it is. It's on you. You got to make yourself better so you're not put in those situations again. And you have to blame somebody else. It's on you to make yourself better. And the best of the best, that, that's how they live. And like you said, in every aspect of their life, you can't go blaming the guy next to you. You can make yourself better to avoid those situations. So you're not put in those situations.
And that's the other thing too, now that you mentioned that. And the reason for that is because I can't control you. You can't control me. The only person we ever have control over in our entire lives is ourselves. So what's the point of blaming someone else? It's about being able to assess, yes, you did this thing, but now it falls on me. What will I do? How am I going to
Right.
handle that? Because that's the only thing I can
Yeah.
control.
Yeah. Great stuff. I don't know what you're drinking in your coffee today, Jenny, but you've been
It was
on.
Turkish coffee, a blend of sorts, straight out of Istanbul.
All
It
right.
was
I have to
delicious.
try some of that. Well, we're reaching our time for today, and I wanted to kind of go back. Think this is our last episode on the athlete's mental edge, and I think there's some good recap there. I we talked a little bit about last week about finding your strengths, finding your weaknesses, really dialing in on some of these things. Really, to my point in closing, really being able to look at yourself and not leave anything on the table. I think is the big example in your practices, in your workouts. Give 100%. If you're slacking, if you have an excuse, you will be looking back at that time after the big game, after the big event, after the race, and you're like, "Oh, man, I could have done this better." You don't wanna live on the regrets. It's a lot easier to put it out on the table at the practice and get it down and work a little harder. Yeah, we all have our days where we're a little more tired and wanna have some more energy, but you can still give 100% for what you got that day, and that's the mentality that you have to train into yourself to get to the point where that's just your norm. You go to practice and you have one speed. You have one speed all the way out. And that's the way you do everything in life. So I guess my big takeaway for the parents, for the athletes, for the coaches, for the referees today, learn to make that your way of life. Don't live life with any regrets, as Carlo would say. Go through every practice, everything you do, and make sure you're giving it your best. go to your big event and look back and say, I could have done this. I could have done that. I've been there. I think we've all been there, and it's not pretty. And I think our goal here is to help you guys from going there. So that's where I'm going to leave it, Jenny. I'm going to leave the rest up to you. What do you got?
Well, I think you summed it up quite nicely. I want people to realize sports is the most public way for you to demonstrate your character and for you to see where some of your holes are, where you can do some work to shore those areas up. I also think that sports is an opportunity for you to learn how to think for yourself. What is it that you want to be more or less of? And choose that, right? And it also teaches you how to be resilient and courageous in the face of all kind of opposition so you can do the right thing every time, especially when no one's looking. We call that sportsmanship. But that is a way of life, doing the right thing so you can sleep well at night. I can always tell what someone is struggling with, what an athlete or a coach is struggling with whenever I watch a game because it is so transparent. We think we hide it, but we don't. Be the person on the field, in the rink, wherever you compete. Be the same person there that you are off the field, which is steady. Different parts of you will show up. Beast mode will show up sometimes, humility will show up other times, but there's still parts of you. Don't be ashamed when you're not feeling it. Don't be ashamed that you made a mistake. Don't be ashamed that you need help. Those are all qualities and attributes of a strong athlete, but an even stronger individual. Develop those, find ways to become more of those things that you know you want to be, that you love about yourself. And use your voice when you see something wrong or when you hear something that's just not right. Speak to that and don't apologize for it. Learn how to speak to that in a way that can be heard and respectful. Sports allows you to develop yourself, even if you do adult sports. It's not about letting other people down. It's about learning to not let yourself down. And that's what I want to leave people with.
Love it, Jenny. So, listeners, we appreciate your hanging out with us and spending some time. We welcome your comments in the comment section. Feel free to let us know what you think. And in a nice way, of course, we're up for ideas for different podcasts and let us know what you would like to talk about and discuss. Until then, thanks for listening. And we'll look forward to talking with you next week.
Adios. See you guys soon.